You really want this on video?
I'll pull it. I'm mad enough to just pull it.
Your neighbors are going to see you pointing a gun at me.
Drop the phone.
No, I'm not.
Drop the phone.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. All right, goodbye, Bruce.
On a quiet December afternoon, a woman hit record on her phone. 30 minutes later, that recording would reveal everything. Stick around. And if you love real stories that are stranger than fiction, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Spring. Texas was the kind of place people moved to when they wanted quiet. Tidy lawns, cul-de-sacs where kids played kickball until the streetlights came on, neighbors who waved from their driveways, sometimes lingering for small talk about the weather or last night's football game. It was, by all appearances, safe, predictable, almost idyllic. Patricia Birmingham fit right into that picture, at least from the outside. At 48 years old, she was known as friendly, practical, and always with her phone close at hand. She recorded birthdays, family barbecues, and silly moments with friends. But what no one realized at first was that Patricia's phone was also becoming something else, a witness. Her husband, Kerry, was a familiar figure on Rose Dawn Lane. Tall, broad, often shuffling around in a robe with a beer in hand. At first, the robe thing made neighbors chuckle. He was that guy on the street, laid back, maybe a little eccentric. But over time, that image started to shift. His drinking got heavier. Conversations became slurred. His temper, once just a bit sharp, started to show cracks. Friends of Patricia began to notice subtle changes in her voice when she talked about him. She wasn't exactly scared yet, but she was cautious. She'd vent to friends, mentioning the drinking, the fights, the accusations. Kerry's jealousy had begun to flare up, often without reason. Allegations of infidelity, suspicious questions, late-night arguments. She started recording their fights quietly at first, audio only, not because she planned to post them anywhere, but because she wanted proof of what she was living through. If anything ever happened, she said, people would know. As weeks turned into months, the atmosphere inside the Birmingham house became less like a home and more like a pressure cooker. Patricia was practical, but she was also tired. She knew Kerry's moods like clockwork, the way alcohol flipped a switch inside him. And so, behind the suburban stillness, a storm was brewing. No police reports had blown it open. No screaming fights in the street. Just a woman quietly collecting evidence and a man slowly unraveling in plain sight. Neighbors noticed little things. The way Kerry's robe sagged lower, how his morning beers turned into midday beers, how Patricia's smile looked a little tighter. December 6, 2021 began like any other day on Rose Dawn Lane. A neighbor watered their garden. Someone jogged past with their dog. If you stood outside that morning, you wouldn't have guessed that by noon, 3 shotgun blasts would echo across the street, and the neighborhood would never feel safe again. The house was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Patricia walked outside, phone in hand, pacing near the driveway. She wasn't calling anyone. She was recording. Calm, measured, intentional. Inside, Kerry stirred. It was late morning, and he'd likely spent the previous night drinking. The robe was back on, that same robe neighbors had come to associate with his presence. But today, there was no lazy grin. Just a foggy kind of hostility. The footage later recovered from Patricia's phone, which showed the rhythm of their argument. It didn't explode all at once. It simmered. He muttered. She responded with a cool, controlled tone. He took jabs. She countered calmly. This wasn't their first fight. It was a pattern. Patricia had learned to handle him in these moods. She didn't escalate. She documented. Her camera didn't shake. Her voice didn't waver. It's chilling. In hindsight, the quiet way she chronicled the confrontation, almost like she knew this recording might be important later. You really want this on video? She asked at one point. It wasn't taunting. It was tired. Kerry didn't answer. He disappeared inside the house. For a few seconds, the video catches nothing but ambient sound. Birds in the distance. A car passing on a nearby road. Patricia stands in the driveway, waiting. The stillness is heavy, the kind that makes you lean in when you're listening to a story, because you know something is about to happen. And then the garage door creaks open. Carrie steps back out. The robe, the bare feet on the concrete. But this time, he's carrying something else. A shotgun. The Benelli shotgun was legal, registered, and stored in their home. But in this moment, it wasn't for sport. It was for intimidation. Patricia doesn't scream. She doesn't run. She keeps recording. Her voice is steady, even as the situation tilts toward danger. She films him stepping toward the driveway, his words slurred, his stance unsteady but threatening. Neighbors wouldn't hear this part clearly, just muffled voices. But the camera caught everything. The way his tone shifted from muttering to direct threats. The way her posture changed, subtle but telling. She had no idea this footage would be her last. The air outside their home was warm, still, deceptively calm. But what was unfolding in that driveway was the slow tightening of a trap. A confrontation years in the making had entered its final stretch. The phone kept recording. Inside the Birmingham home, the morning light filtered to the blinds like any other day. But behind those walls, Patricia had already made a decision. If Carrie was going to spiral again, she would have the evidence. She tapped the record button on her phone and set it to video, holding it low but steady. This wasn't the first time she'd done this. Weeks before, she recorded audio during their fights. But recently, she'd started capturing full video, almost like she knew the day was coming when someone else would need to see what she lived through. Carrie emerged from the hallway like a storm cloud. His robe hung open slightly, his movements loose and uncoordinated. His voice carried a familiar edge, part drunken swagger, part simmering hostility. The kind of tone that could flip from joking to dangerous in seconds. The argument started small. It usually did. Something about Patricia's phone, about her talking to someone late the night before. Carrie accused her of lying. She countered quietly, not matching his volume, not taking the bait. This was their rhythm. He provoked. She stayed measured. He escalated. She recorded. The footage shows him pacing in short, uneven lines across the living room. He pointed a finger at her, calling her names, muttering about betrayal. Patricia's voice barely rose above conversational level. There's almost a chilling normalcy to it. "Go ahead," she said at one point, her voice clear. "Keep talking." And he did. The tension in the house thickened as minutes passed. Carrie moved toward the garage door, muttering under his breath. He was drunk, yes, but beneath that, there was an intent in his movements, like a man rehearsing his anger. Patricia followed, not aggressively, but deliberately, camera still rolling. She knew the safest thing she could do wasn't to scream. It was to make sure someone, somewhere, would see this. The way she spoke to him on the recording feels almost practiced, not in a manipulative way, in a survival way. She'd been through this enough times to know how to keep her voice calm, how not to trigger him further, and how to let him hang himself with his own words. Outside the garage, the Texas air was warm and still. The neighborhood remained oblivious. Cars passed occasionally. Somewhere, a lawnmower started up. Inside that garage, though, the tension was like a drawn bowstring, seconds from snapping. Patricia shifted her stance, raising the phone slightly. The camera caught Carrie turning back toward her, eyes narrowing, lips twisting into something between a sneer and a smirk. He was ready to keep going, and she was ready to keep recording. If scene 1 was a spark, scene 2 was a gasoline. What began as a verbal spat turned into psychological warfare, and Patricia's camera was there to capture every beat. Carrie's words shifted from jealous accusations to pointed, almost taunting threats. He circled her, sometimes pacing away, then whipping back suddenly to throw new insults. He slurred things like, "You think I won't? And you really want to test me?" His tone wavered between arrogance and rage, like a man trying to convince both her and himself that he had control. Patricia, meanwhile, stood her ground in the garage. Her voice never cracked. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She kept talking to him calmly, like someone narrating a storm while standing in the middle of it. "You're drunk," she said plainly. "You don't even hear yourself." The camera caught the way his eyes flickered, a flash of something more dangerous than anger, wounded pride. That's often the moment arguments like these turn, not because of logic, because of ego. At one point, Patricia walked a few steps toward the driveway, still filming. Carrie stayed inside the garage, shoulders rising and falling. You can almost feel the shift through the lens, the air between them tightening, like two magnets about to snap together violently. Then comes a line that would echo through the case later. Patricia looked at him and said, "Clearly, you really want this on video?" It wasn't a scream. It wasn't mocking. It was a statement, almost like she was giving him one last chance to back down. But Carrie didn't. Instead, he disappeared briefly inside. The camera wavered slightly, pointed toward the garage floor. The audio picked up faint clinking, the unmistakable sound of someone moving something heavy and metallic. Patricia didn't run. She didn't stop filming. Her voice is heard again, faint but steady. "Go get your gun, then," she said. It wasn't a dare. It was weary, like someone who'd seen this routine play out too many times. Moments later, he returned. Same robe, bare feet, but now a shotgun in his hands. The camera shakes slightly as Patricia adjusts her grip. Her breathing remains steady. "You're gonna meet Jesus," Carrie muttered. The words slurred but unmistakable. This wasn't empty talk anymore. The psychological game had crossed into physical threat. And Patricia, standing in the warm morning light, held her phone like a shield. She couldn't have known it yet, but this recording, the one she started so deliberately, was no longer just documentation. It was becoming the timeline of a murder in real time. The camera was still rolling. By now, Patricia's phone had been recording for several minutes, capturing what was no longer a typical argument but a live standoff. Carrie stood inside the garage, shotgun in hand, swaying slightly. The late morning light cut through the open doorway, outlining his figure like a dark silhouette. His robe hung loose, his bare feet planted unevenly on the concrete. In one hand, the weapon, in the other, a half-empty drink. Patricia was outside the garage, holding her phone steady. Her voice carried the same measured comment earlier, but there was a weight in her tone now. She wasn't just documenting. She was bearing witness. "Carrie," she said slowly, "put it down." He shook his head. "You're not listening," he slurred. "You never listen." The sound of birds in distant traffic filled the spaces between their words. It was almost surreal, this ordinary suburban morning backdrop to a situation that was seconds away from catastrophe. Carrie paced again, the barrel of the shotgun swinging dangerously close to his own legs. His words grew more disjointed. He accused her of cheating, of plotting against him, of recording to make him look bad. He called her names. Then he laughed. A sharp, chilling laugh that echoed to the garage like breaking glass. Patricia didn't flinch. Her phone caught everything. The angle steady, the lens focused. "You're drunk," she repeated. "You need to stop." He raised the shotgun slightly, pointing it loosely in her direction. It wasn't a clear aim, more like a threat hanging in the air. But for anyone watching, it's the moment everything changed. "You're gonna meet Jesus," he muttered again, louder this time. She stepped back a few inches but didn't turn away. The video caught her face in brief glimpses, calm but resolved. This wasn't the look of someone panicking. It was the look of someone who knew that running wouldn't save her. The argument looped in circles. Accusations, denials, half-mumbled threats, but the tension only climbed. Carrie cocked the shotgun with a sharp, metallic click. That sound sliced through the morning like a starting gun. From this point on, every second was loaded. Neighbors had no idea what was happening. No sirens, no witnesses. Just two people, one holding a camera, the other a gun, locked in a fatal dance neither could back away from. Somewhere in those final minutes, Patricia whispered something almost to herself. The mic barely picked it up. "I'm not scared." It's unclear whether Carrie heard her, but the way he gripped the shotgun next suggests he did. The confrontation reached its boiling point just after 10 a.m. The camera captured Carrie taking slow, uneven steps toward Patricia. She backed away into the driveway, still filming, still talking to him, her voice firm, like she was trying to hold back a tide. "Carrie, don't," she said. He raised a shotgun higher, finally aiming. This wasn't a bluff anymore. This was a decision. The video shakes slightly as Patricia moves, but she doesn't scream. She doesn't beg. She keeps telling him to stop, to think, to put it down. Her composure in those final seconds is haunting. Neighbors would later say they didn't hear the first shot. Maybe it was muffled by the garage. Maybe it blended into morning noise. But the camera heard everything. The blast was sudden and loud, final. The phone jolted. The lens swung toward the sky for a second before tilting back down. Patricia fell backward, hit once in the torso. She didn't drop the phone immediately. In fact, for a few seconds after the shot, the footage showed a shaky, tilted view of the garage. Carrie's figure still standing, smoke rising from the shotgun barrel. He didn't run. He didn't call for help. He stepped forward, looming over her like a shadow. His breathing was heavy, uneven. Then came the second shot. This time, it wasn't hesitant. It was deliberate. The camera caught only part of it. A flash, a sound, and in a chaotic blur, as the phone fell from her grasp, landing face up on the driveway. For a brief, eerie moment, the lens captured the world from that low angle. The underside of the garage roof, the distant sky, Carrie's feet pacing back and forth. You could hear him muttering to himself, words half lost in slurs. He stood over her body, gun in hand, breathing like someone who just sprinted a mile. There was no immediate siren, no neighbor bursting in, just the sound of his footsteps and the faint hum of the suburban street. The last moments of the recording show Carrie walking back into the garage, shotgun still in hand. He doesn't look back. The camera continues recording the stillness, like a silent witness to everything that just unfolded. 30 minutes earlier, this was just another morning. Now it was a crime scene. The quiet on Rose Dawn Lane shattered within minutes of the gunfire. Neighbors, confused at first by the sound, stepped out of their houses and froze at the sight unfolding down the street. Patricia's phone still lay on the ground, screen cracked but still recording. From its position on the driveway, it silently captured the eerie calm that followed the two fatal blasts. A woman across the street was the first to dial 911. Her voice trembled as she whispered the operator, "My neighbor, I think he just shot his wife." Within moments, the suburban silence was replaced by the wail of sirens. Harris County Sheriff's deputies and paramedics raced toward the scene, their vehicles lighting up the quiet cul-de-sac in red and blue. Carrie was still inside the house when the officers arrived. He hadn't fled. He hadn't called for help. He was found sitting at the kitchen table, still in his robe, shotgun placed on the counter nearby, a drink beside it. He looked eerily composed, like the chaos outside wasn't real. Deputies entered with weapons drawn. The front door was unlocked. Sheriff's office. One of them shouted as they moved through the hallway. Carrie didn't resist. He raised his hand slowly, muttering something incoherent. Outside, two paramedics rushed to Patricia, but it was too late. The two shotgun wounds, one to her torso, the second more devastating, had been fatal almost instantly. Her phone continued recording until a deputy carefully picked it up, freezing the final moments in digital memory. Neighbors gathered at a distance, some crying, others stunned into silence. It didn't make sense to them. They had seen Patricia walk her dog in the mornings. They had waved at Carrie in his robe, laughed at his quirky behavior. No one had imagined this quiet street would turn into a crime scene. As deputies handcuffed Carrie and led him to a patrol car, a neighbor filmed from behind a tree. The footage, grainy and shaky, showed a man who didn't fight, didn't cry, didn't speak. He looked almost vacant. Investigators quickly secured the scene. Yellow tape went up around the driveway. Forensic teams began photographing the bloodstains, the shotgun shells, and the phone, evidence that would soon become the cornerstone of the case. The time between the gunshots and Carrie's arrest was less than 15 minutes. But for everyone on that street, it felt like an eternity. News of the killing spread fast. By afternoon, local media vans crowded the entrance of the cul-de-sac. Reporters stood under the Texas sun, microphones in hand, describing the shocking domestic shooting in what residents had long called a safe neighborhood. The video Patricia recorded became the key piece of evidence, and the story's most haunting element. It wasn't just a blurry clip or distant audio. It was a full, unbroken recording of the hours leading to her death, including the fatal moments themselves. Investigators reviewed the footage almost immediately. What they saw confirmed their suspicions. This was not a sudden outburst. This was a slow, deliberate escalation that ended in murder. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez held a press conference that evening. Flanked by deputies, he addressed the cameras. This is a tragic example of domestic violence that escalated to the worst possible outcome. The victim was courageous in documenting the incident, and that video will play a crucial role in bringing justice. The footage was not released publicly at that time, but details leaked quickly. Social media lit up with reactions: shock, outrage, heartbreak. Patricia's calmness in the face of danger was described by many as chilling and brave. Others questioned how the situation had reached this point without intervention. Friends and family members spoke to reporters outside the home. One of Patricia's relatives said through tears, "She told us she was scared. She told us if anything happened, she'd have it on video. She was right." Meanwhile, Carey was booked into the Harris County Jail on charges of first-degree murder. He was held without bond. During his initial interrogation, deputies noted he appeared intoxicated and emotionally detached. At times, he denied what had happened. Other times, he muttered phrases like, "She pushed me too far," and "She shouldn't have recorded." That detachment shocked even seasoned investigators. One detective later told a local news station off camera, "It's like he didn't understand the gravity. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't even remorseful. He was blank." In the days that followed, neighbors placed flowers and candles on Patricia's driveway. A makeshift memorial grew, surrounded by handwritten notes and photos. What had been an ordinary suburban street was now marked by tragedy, a place where the line between normal life and unspeakable violence had blurred in an instant. The courthouse in Harris County was packed on the first day of Patricia Birmingham's murder trial. Nearly a year had passed since Patricia's death, but the case hadn't faded from public memory. The footage she recorded had transformed the incident from a private tragedy into a national conversation about domestic violence, evidence, and the power of documentation. Prosecutors walked into the courtroom with what they described as the most powerful witness imaginable: Patricia herself. Her phone, recovered from a driveway that morning, had preserved the events from beginning to end. In a sense, she had built the case against Carey before she was killed. The prosecution opened with a clear narrative. Carey had been drinking heavily. He had a history of volatile behavior, and the shooting was not a crime of passion. It was premeditated escalation. They told the jury that Patricia's composure in the face of his threats proved she understood the danger, and the video proved he made a choice. The defense painted a different picture. They argued that Carey was intoxicated, emotionally unstable, and had snapped in a moment of drunken rage. They claimed he had no intent to kill when he picked up the shotgun, that it was a tragic accident fueled by alcohol and paranoia. But then the prosecution played the video. Inside the courtroom, lights dimmed, and the jury watched the footage from that morning. Carey's slurred accusations, his pacing with a shotgun, the click of the cocking mechanism, Patricia's calm but firm voice, and finally, the blasts. The room fell silent when it ended. Several jurors visibly shuddered. One alternate juror wiped away tears. Patricia's voice, her courage, her quiet insistence on recording. It was more than evidence. It was haunting testimony from beyond the grave. Forensic experts testified about the trajectory of the shotgun blasts. Neighbors described hearing muffled arguing followed by silence. A sheriff's deputy recounted finding Carey in his robe, expressionless, as if he didn't comprehend what he had done. What might have been a complex, he said. She said, case became undeniable. Carey's defense began to crumble under the weight of Patricia's recording. The prosecution didn't just argue the facts. They let Patricia tell the story herself. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. Carey sat at the defense table, clean-shaven. wearing a suit, a stark contrast to the bathrobe figure from the video. But his expression was the same, flat, detached. The foreperson stood and delivered the verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Carrie showed no visible reaction. Patricia's family, seated in the front row, broke into quiet tears. Some from relief, some from sorrow that justice, though served, couldn't bring her back. The judge sentenced Carrie to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. In his remarks, he called Patricia's recording an extraordinary act of courage and said it left no doubt about what had happened that morning. Outside the courthouse, media cameras rolled as prosecutors and family members addressed the crowd. One prosecutor told reporters, Patricia's decision to press record ensured that her story couldn't be twisted or erased. She became the key witness in her own case. Patricia's sister spoke next, her voice shaking. She knew something might happen. She made sure we'd know the truth. We miss her every day, but she gave us the gift of justice. The case didn't end with the verdict. Across Texas and eventually across the U.S., domestic violence advocates began using Patricia's story in campaigns, training sessions, and legal seminars. The recording became a teaching tool for law enforcement, illustrating how real-time evidence can save lives, support prosecutions, and expose escalating abuse before it turns fatal. Local lawmakers even proposed a measure, informally nicknamed Patricia's Law, to strengthen evidence protocols in domestic violence investigations. Though the bill was still under review, it sparked a statewide conversation about victim empowerment through documentation. Social media kept the story alive. True crime channels, legal analysts, and domestic violence survivors share Patricia's story not for shock value, but as a warning and a testament of bravery. Her calm voice in the footage became symbolic. A woman refusing to let her story be rewritten by her abuser. Carrie remains incarcerated today, serving his life sentence. He has filed appeals, but none have gained traction. The recording, clear, damning, and irrefutable, continues to stand as the central piece of evidence. In the end, Patricia's decision to press record didn't just document crime. It ensured justice, changed legal conversations, and gave survivors a powerful reminder. Their voices matter, even in the face of unimaginable danger. As this story comes to a close, we pause to honor the memory of Patricia Birmingham. She wasn't just a headline. She was a sister, a friend, a neighbor, a woman deeply loved by those around her, who faced unimaginable danger with quiet strength. Her courage to press record didn't just expose the truth. It gave her loved ones the power to find justice. And it gave the world a story that will never be forgotten. To Patricia's family, her friends, and everyone who stood beside them through the pain, our deepest sympathies go out to you. Your loss has echoed far beyond your street. And to every survivor, supporter, and sympathizer watching this, Patricia's story is a reminder that your voice matters. May her memory continue to inspire change, awareness, and protection for those who need it most. Before you go, if you found this story powerful and believe in shining a light on real cases like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Together, we can grow this new true crime channel into something bigger, a community where stories are told with respect, impact, and purpose. Let's keep Patricia's legacy alive and keep uncovering the truth, one case at a time.